Did you know that across the United States, more than 40% of adults over 60 say they are discovering deeper emotional intimacy and even a richer sex life than they ever had in their younger years? It's a quiet secret rarely spoken about, but it's changing the way we think about aging and relationships. For decades, society painted a picture that love, passion, and romance fade with the passing years. Yet thousands of seniors are proving the opposite, that the heart has no expiration date, and the desire for closeness only grows stronger when it's rooted in wisdom and life experience. Imagine waking up each morning not to loneliness, but to the thrill of companionship, the warmth of a hand that understands your history, and the spark of laughter that makes you feel alive again. What if the most passionate chapter of your love life isn't something you left behind in your 20s or 40s, but something waiting just around the corner? Picture Eleonora, 67, who believed her romantic story had ended, only to discover that with courage and openness, she could write a new beginning filled with joy, connection, and even playful intimacy. This is not about clinging to youth, but about embracing love in its truest, most mature form. So let me ask you, what if your most meaningful chapter of love is still ahead of you? Could it be that the best part of your relationship journey starts now, after 60? Maribel was 67, a retired librarian from a small town in Ohio, and for most of her life she had been the quiet backbone of her family and community. She spent decades surrounded by books, guiding children through their first stories and helping adults find the knowledge they sought. But when her husband of 40 years passed away, she suddenly found herself in a silence she couldn't read her way out of. The house felt colder, the evenings unbearably long, and the world seemed to look right past her. She often said she felt like a ghost, alive yet unseen. For nearly 2 years, her days blurred together. Coffee alone in the morning, errands done quietly, evenings spent in front of the television with no one to share a laugh or comment with. But then came a small turning point. One afternoon, her daughter invited her to attend a community poetry reading at the local library. At first, Maribel resisted. What was the point? Yet she went, and when someone asked her opinion about a poem on resilience, she found herself speaking with emotion and insight. To her surprise, people listened closely, nodding, smiling, even thanking her afterward. That moment reminded her of something she had forgotten. She still had a voice, a perspective, and a presence that mattered. From there, she began taking small but deliberate steps. She joined a local senior walking group, where she found not just exercise but laughter and camaraderie. She signed up for an online cooking workshop, and through her screen, she began exchanging recipes and stories with people she never would have met otherwise. And then, with trembling hands and a pounding heart, she created a profile on a senior dating site. At first, she wasn't looking for romance, just conversation. But soon, she discovered something astonishing. Men and women her age were openly talking about companionship, affection, and yes, intimacy. It wasn't taboo. It was real, raw, and deeply human. Maribel learned that rediscovering connection wasn't about replacing the love she had lost. It was about proving to herself that she could still grow, still laugh, and still feel the thrill of anticipation when someone new reached out. She began to realize that her story wasn't ending. It was shifting into a new chapter, one where she had the freedom to define love on her own terms. And perhaps the most powerful realization of all was this: desire, closeness, and deep emotional bonds do not fade with age. They evolve, becoming richer and more meaningful with every year lived. Rediscovering desire. Beyond stereotypes. For years, Maribel believed what society had subtly taught her, that intimacy, romance, and passion belonged to the young. It was an unspoken rule whispered through television shows, movies, and even casual conversations. After 60, you were supposed to settle into quiet companionship, not explore the thrilling spark of new desire. But one of the most liberating truths she discovered was that this stereotype couldn't be further from reality. Today, seniors across the United States are breaking down these outdated beliefs, proving that love and intimacy don't fade with age. They simply transform into something more authentic, more intentional, and often more satisfying. When Maribel first dipped her toes into the senior dating world, she was surprised by the confidence she found in herself. Unlike in her 20s, she no longer carried the heavy weight of insecurity or the pressure to prove herself. Instead, she had clarity about what she wanted: respect, laughter, emotional closeness, and yes, the physical spark of attraction. She realized something that many seniors today are embracing: confidence to make the first move isn't just for the young. In fact, older adults are increasingly rewriting the rules of dating by initiating conversations, suggesting meetups, and openly stating what they're looking for. And studies show that this self-assurance is one of the reasons late-life relationships often feel deeper and more honest. Another revelation for Maribel was understanding that intimacy wasn't just about physical touch. It was about emotional openness. After decades of life experiences, heartbreaks, and lessons learned, she discovered that emotional intimacy wasn't a weakness, but a superpower. Sharing vulnerabilities, speaking openly about needs, and listening with genuine presence created a bond far stronger than superficial attraction. This is a powerful shift happening among seniors everywhere. The idea that real intimacy comes from being seen and accepted for who you truly are, without masks or pretense. For many seniors, rediscovering desire also means giving themselves permission to embrace playfulness again. Maribel found joy in small, flirtatious moments: a witty text, a gentle hand on her shoulder during a walk, a shared laugh over spilled coffee. These weren't grand gestures, but they reminded her that connection is built on little sparks that accumulate into something extraordinary. And here's the part most people don't talk about. Seniors today are embracing intimacy with fewer inhibitions because they no longer feel bound by the judgments of others. They're living for themselves, not for what society expects. If you've ever been told that love and passion are behind you, Maribel's story is proof that this is a myth worth discarding. The reality is, your 60s and 70s can be a time of rediscovery, where you're free to explore desire with the wisdom of experience and the courage to ask for what truly matters. So let me ask you, have you felt those old stereotypes trying to box you in? And are you ready to step beyond them, to claim the intimacy, joy, and connection that's waiting for you right now? The heart of companionship. Emotional security and playfulness. For Maribel, companionship after 60 turned out to be less about following the old rules of romance and more about building something authentic, something rooted in trust, laughter, and shared values. She discovered that love at her age wasn't about proving yourself or living up to societal expectations. Instead, it was about finding a partner who brought peace to her heart and joy to her everyday life. And perhaps the most surprising discovery: playfulness, the kind she hadn't felt since her younger days, came rushing back in the most unexpected ways. One evening, Maribel and a new companion, Robert, decided to cook dinner together. What began as a serious attempt at preparing a complicated recipe turned into an evening of laughter when the pasta boiled over and sauce splattered across the stove. In the past, she might have been embarrassed, but now she found herself doubled over with laughter, wiping tears from her eyes as Robert grabbed paper towels to clean the mess. It was a reminder that companionship isn't about perfection. It's about enjoying the imperfect, silly moments that make life vibrant. Love after 60 also thrives on vulnerability. Maribel no longer felt the need to hide her scars, both the emotional ones and the physical ones. When she opened up about her fears of loneliness, Robert didn't try to fix her. He simply listened, nodded, and admitted his own worries. That mutual honesty created a depth of connection that she had never experienced in her youth. Vulnerability, she realized, wasn't weakness. It was the foundation of trust. And among seniors today, more and more people are learning that the bravest thing you can do is to show up exactly as you are. Another beautiful layer of companionship came through nostalgia. Maribel and Robert began exchanging handwritten notes, something she hadn't done since she was a teenager. A simple "thinking of you" scribbled on a card carried more weight than a dozen text messages. They also found joy in slow dancing to old records, swaying in the living room with no audience but themselves. These small, nostalgic acts made their bond feel timeless, bridging the past with the present. But companionship today also looks forward. Seniors are blending the warmth of old traditions with the convenience of modern technology. Maribel, once skeptical of video calls, now looked forward to her weekly virtual cooking sessions with Robert whenever they couldn't meet in person. Dating apps, which once seemed intimidating, became tools for connection, allowing her to meet people who shared her values and interests. This merging of the old and the new created a unique rhythm to her relationships, one that honored her history while embracing the opportunities of the present. What Maribel learned, and what so many seniors are discovering, is that love after 60 isn't about following society's outdated definitions of romance. It's about laughter that heals, vulnerability that binds, and values that sustain. It's about writing love letters one day and sending emojis the next. It's about dancing barefoot in the living room, then logging into Zoom for a shared activity. And above all, it's about choosing joy. Choosing the kind of companionship that makes every day feel like a gift. So let me ask you, in your own life, are you allowing space for both the nostalgia that warms your heart and the modern connections that keep you growing? Because the truth is, the heart of companionship after 60 is not about age. It's about creating a love story that feels timeless. Breaking the loneliness cycle. For Maribel, the most difficult part of life after her husband's passing wasn't paying the bills or managing the household. It was the silence. Loneliness has a way of creeping into the corners of your life, slowly turning ordinary evenings into heavy hours that seem to stretch forever. And she wasn't alone in this struggle. In fact, recent studies show that nearly 1 in 3 adults over 60 in the US experience regular feelings of loneliness. But here's the hopeful part. Seniors today are finding powerful, creative ways to break that cycle, and it's reshaping what companionship really means. For Maribel, the first step came through technology. First, she was skeptical. Social media and video calls felt like they belonged to younger generations. But with a little encouragement from her granddaughter, she began using video chats to reconnect with old friends and even attend virtual interest groups. Soon, her evenings shifted from silent to social. She was laughing, sharing stories, and even joining an online trivia night with people her age from across the country. Technology, once intimidating, became a bridge back to connection. Another unexpected avenue was community living. Maribel had heard of senior cohousing communities. Small, intentional neighborhoods where older adults live independently but share common spaces and activities. Curious, she visited one near Columbus. What she found surprised her. Residents gathered for potluck dinners, celebrated birthdays together, and supported one another in small but meaningful ways. There was no sense of isolation, no silent evenings, just a vibrant network of people who valued both independence and togetherness. Even though Maribel didn't move in, she realized that seeking community doesn't have to mean losing autonomy. For many seniors, cohousing is proving to be an antidote to loneliness, blending privacy with built-in companionship. Then there was the newest, and perhaps most surprising, frontier, AI companionship. At first, Maribel laughed at the idea, talking to a computer? But when she tried a simple AI companion app, she found it comforting to have someone to chat with in the late hours of the night when no one else was awake. It wasn't a replacement for human connection, but it filled a gap. For many seniors, these tools are providing emotional support, reducing anxiety, and reminding them they're not truly alone. What Maribel discovered is that companionship after 60 isn't limited to romance. It's about building networks of joy, safety, and shared purpose. A walking group that keeps you active, a neighbor who checks in regularly, a friend across the country you talk to every Thursday night. These small connections add up to something powerful. They create a safety net that keeps loneliness from taking root. Breaking the loneliness cycle is about saying yes to opportunities, even the ones that feel unfamiliar at first. It's about realizing that connection doesn't always arrive in the form of a partner. It can be a community, a group, or even a tool that helps you feel heard. For Maribel, those choices transformed her days from quiet and heavy to full of meaning, proving that no one has to walk through their later years alone. So here's the question. What small step could you take this week to break the cycle of loneliness? Because the truth is, your world can grow bigger, warmer, and more connected at any age, if you're willing to open the door. When Maribel looked back at the woman she was just a few years ago, The contrast was almost unrecognizable. At 67, she had once described herself as fading into the background, convinced her most vibrant years of love and connection were gone. Today, though, she stood taller, her laughter rang louder, and her presence felt radiant. What had changed? It wasn't simply that she found a companion. It was that she reimagined what love and life could look like in her later years. Her transformation began with a subtle shift, allowing herself to believe she was still worthy of joy. That one decision cracked the door open to possibilities she had long buried under grief and routine. Slowly, step by step, she built a new identity, not defined by loss but by courage. She rediscovered how to flirt, how to play, how to welcome affection without apology. But perhaps the most remarkable change wasn't external at all. It was the quiet confidence that grew inside her, the realization that she was not invisible, but deeply seen and valued. Maribel found herself enjoying moments she once thought belonged only to the young, the thrill of receiving a message from someone who genuinely cared, the warmth of holding hands while strolling through the park, the sweetness of dancing barefoot in her living room. But this time, it wasn't about chasing perfection or living up to expectations. It was about savoring the richness of connection that only comes with experience and maturity. She discovered that intimacy in her 60s wasn't about proving her desirability. It was about celebrating her humanity. What makes Maribel's journey so powerful is that it mirrors what countless seniors are quietly experiencing across the country. Many are realizing that the best part of life's story doesn't end at retirement. It begins again, with new friendships, meaningful love, and fresh opportunities for connection. Seniors are breaking away from the tired narrative that aging equals decline, replacing it with a truth far more inspiring. Aging can mean freedom, clarity, and emotional depth. And here's the takeaway for anyone listening. The best love story isn't locked in your past. It isn't a memory fading in an old photo album. It's waiting ahead of you, in moments you haven't yet lived, in people you haven't yet met, and in laughter you haven't yet shared. Whether it's through romance, friendship, or community, the chance to feel alive and deeply connected is still yours to claim. At 67, Maribel felt more alive than she had at 27, not because life had been easy, but because she had the wisdom to embrace it fully. Her story is a reminder that it's never too late to turn the page, to step into the light, and to write a love story that surprises even you. So ask yourself this. If Maribel can reimagine love, why not you? Because the truth is simple yet powerful. The best love story isn't behind you. It's waiting in front of you. If Maribel's journey has stirred something in you, here's your moment to pause and reflect. Her story is not an exception. It's a mirror of what so many are experiencing quietly, often without the encouragement to share it. And maybe, just maybe, you have a story of your own. Think about it. The first time you dared to step back into the world of companionship after years of believing it was behind you. The courage it took to open up, to trust again, or even just to laugh with someone new. These are not small things. They're victories, and they deserve to be spoken out loud. That's why I want to invite you right here and right now, to share your own late-life love experiences in the comments. Have you rediscovered companionship, friendship, or even passion after 60? Are you taking your very first steps toward connection? Or are you still searching but holding on to hope? Your words might be exactly what another person needs to hear tonight. When you tell your story, you don't just release your own truth. You give someone else the courage to take their first step. And if this video has given you a spark of encouragement, a sense of possibility, or even a reason to smile, please hit that like button. It tells us, and the YouTube world, that conversations like this matter, that seniors deserve content created just for them, full of respect, dignity, and inspiration. Don't forget to subscribe to Senior Relationships After 60 if you want more stories, insights, and guidance that speak directly to this chapter of life. Every week, we bring you real stories, fresh ideas, and reminders that love, intimacy, and companionship are not bound by age. And when you subscribe, you're not just following a channel. You're joining a community of people who are rewriting the script on what it means to love after 60. Finally, I ask you to share this video with someone you care about. Maybe it's a friend who's feeling isolated, a parent who thinks their best years are gone, or even a neighbor who just needs to hear that they're not alone. Spreading this message could be the nudge they need to open the next beautiful chapter in their life. Remember, the power of this journey doesn't end when the video stops. It begins with your participation. So comment, like, subscribe, and share. Together, we can create a space where seniors everywhere feel seen, heard, and celebrated. Because love after 60 isn't just possible, it's waiting. And your story might be the light that helps someone else believe it.